I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, one and all. Welcome to the Tuesday, January 7th, 2025 Lincoln County Commission meeting. This is our first meeting of 2025. So with that being said, I'd like to welcome all of those that are here, those that might be listening, and those that might be watching online. We'll begin with Judge Rachel. Coming up front, will you please administer the oath to our two newly elected county commissioners? Okay.
You can just come on up here by me. All right. You raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
That I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and I will faithfully and impartially discharge
all the duties
all the duties
of my office
of my office
as Lincoln County Commissioner.
of Lincoln County Commission.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Have you been more than
Take care.
Putnam, you ready as well?
Nope.
Raise your hand. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota,
and the Constitution of the State of South Dakota.
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
I will faithfully and impartially discharge
all the duties
all the duties
of my office
of my office
of Lincoln County Commissioner.
of Lincoln County Commission.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Let them get seated and stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ready to be on Mike, your seat? Commissioner Poppins, or former Commissioner Poppins, and Commissioner Gibbon, I'd like to acknowledge and thank you for your years of dedication and service. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, I think they deserve a round of applause for their time. Come on up. The first item of business on our new schedule is to approve our agenda that we have in front of us. And we have an item number 9 on our regular agenda, which needs to be removed for any action. So with that change, I would entertain a motion to approve our agenda for the meeting this morning.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Landine, second by
Otten.
Ott. Any comments? Any public comments? Seeing none, Rachel, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Otten?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Putnam?
This is to approve the agenda.
Yes.
Landine?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Next item is to approve our consent agenda. As you will read, we have several items on the consent agenda.
Actually, Commissioner, item 2 under routine is the,
Oh, board, I'm done. That's good. Thank you. With that, I will move my chair to past Chair Landine for her to take over the meeting, please. Okay?
thank you, Commissioner. First thing we need to do today is elect our chair and vice chair pursuant to SDCL 7-8-15. So with that, I'd first like to open that up for public comment. If anybody wishes to speak on that agenda item. All right, if not, then I would consider a motion for chairperson.
Madam Chair, I nominate Commissioner Landine to be the chair of the Lincoln County Commission for the 25 balanced year.
I'll second that.
I have a mo- Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, Alicia, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Otten,
Yes,
Schmidt,
Yes.
Putnam,
Yes.
Landine.
Yes. Thank you. We'll go ahead then and move on to our consent agenda. Any,
Vice Chair.
oh, sorry, missed that. Vice Chair, need a motion for Vice Chair.
Madam, I would motion Jim Schmidt for vice chair.
Is there a second?
I second it, Putnam.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, there being none, Alicia, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Otten,
Yes,
Schmidt,
Yes.
Putnam,
Yes.
Landine.
Yes, the motion carries. Next, we'll move on.
You guys want to switch seats?
We can wait. Doesn't matter to me. I'm signed in. We can,
Okay.
we can wait till
All
later.
right.
Move on to our consent agenda. Is there any input on our consent agenda from the public?
Good morning, Linda Montgomery from Fairview, South Dakota. I would like a consent agenda 4 moved to the regular business for reasons that on the briefing form, there is no cost related to that. It kind of right now looks like a blank check for education and travel. And I, as a taxpayer, I'd like to see how much of the budget, how much is allocated towards this part of the consent agenda.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that has any comment on the consent agenda? All right. Is there a motion to remove item 4 from the consent agenda and put it onto the regular agenda?
So moved.
We've got a motion to move consent 4 to the regular agenda. Is there a second?
I second.
I've got a second from Commissioner Putnam. Any discussion? Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Otten,
yes,
Schmidt,
No.
Putnam,
Yes.
Landine.
Yes. Motion carries, so we'll move item 4, and that will be moved to the end of our regular business. And then with that change, can I get a motion to approve our consent agenda?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
Motion from Schmidt, second from Aaron's. Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Otten,
yes,
Schmidt,
Yes.
Putnam.
I did not hear what she'd said.
To
Item
approve
is to approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
Sorry,
Yes.
Commissioner, I'll try and speak a little bit louder.
Thank you.
Landine.
Yes. All right, next on our agenda is a public hearing to consider an application for the transfer of a retail on-sale liquor license to operate outside a municipality from Raj and Son Fuel LLC to Larson Logistics LLC at Carlson Track 2 in the south half of the southwest quarter, 3196 north, 50 46016 South Dakota Highway 46, Beersford, Lincoln County, South Dakota 57004. Is the applicant present? Okay, are there any proponents of this application? Any opponents? All right, if not, I would consider a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion, but I'm wondering if everything has been cleared. That's what I wanted to check, all the background checks and everything else has been fine. I'll move to approve.
Thank you. I got a motion to approve from Commissioner Schmidt. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, one of the questions I have, on their application, it says the license is not in active use. Does any of the staff know what's going on with that? And why it's being transferred if it's not in active use?
The establishment is currently shut down for renovations, and since there's no liquor being bought, it's inactive
Well,
currently.
that answers that question. Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Otten,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Putnam,
Yes.
Landine.
Yes. Next item on our agenda is briefing on the proposed men's prison. After that, we'll take questions from commissioners, and I'd ask at this time, if you have questions, please keep them to questions. And I don't know, Betty, do you want to kind of tee this off?
Thank you, Ryan. Yes, when I've been trying to get this done for a very long time, and when I won the general election, I started going forward, working with Ryan and his staff, and I thank you all for being here. This is so needed, the communication. So I'm just going to turn it over to Ryan or whoever wants to take it, and I think that they already have it queued up for you.
Well, good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioner Otten, members of the commission. I'm going to turn it over to Secretary Wasco in a minute, but by way of introduction, I just wanted to thank Commissioner Otten and thank the commission for the opportunity to be here this morning and give you a brief on the proposed men's prison. My name's Ryan Bruner. I'm a senior policy advisor for the governor on public safety-related issues, and so I work with the Department of Corrections in regards to the prison. I've been down in Lincoln County when it comes to some of the infrastructure conversations. I was at the Harrisburg City Council meeting, the Lennox City Council meeting, involved in some of those conversations leading up to the decision and the selection of the site for the prison. When Commissioner Otten reached out, the timing was also beneficial. As you're aware, this issue is still in litigation, and so we're not going to speak directly to the litigation at all this morning. And the commission has filed an amicus brief on the opposite side of the state by a 3-2 vote. But we're at a point in the litigation where the original lawsuit was dismissed. That's been appealed to the Supreme Court. The state's reply brief was filed yesterday morning around 11 o'clock. And so there will be one more reply brief, but it will stick to the facts of those briefs. And so a lot of the judicial record that the Supreme Court is going to consider is now determined. And so they'll read those briefs and make a decision. And so that gives us a little more flexibility to come down and visit with the county commission. We're going to stay away from all those topics directly related to those briefs, but the timing worked out that the brief was due yesterday. It was filed, and so DOT did a road public hearing last night, and we were able to be here today. And so thank you for the invitation. Would have been nice to continue these conversations, or will be nice to continue some of these conversations into the future as well. Before I turn it over to Secretary Wasco, I think I saw the PowerPoint was queued up, but the little bit of background, as you're aware, this all started with a study, an identification of need that the current prison that was built in 1881 is in very rough condition. It was built for people to have one person per cell. It's got 2 people per cell and needs to be replaced. To that end, the state commissioned a study called the DLR study back in 2021 to look at a path forward for renovating and modernizing our correction facilities. The number one recommendation of that study was to build a new men's prison on a multi-custody prison on 160 acres in the Sioux Falls vicinity. So with that study, and that's what DOC is proposing, this is Project 1A of the DLR study, a multi-custody facility on 160 acres in the Sioux Falls area. That further got refined. There was a legislative summer study that reviewed that DLR report and recommended this as one of the two projects that came out of that legislative summer study. And then JCA, the Joint Committee on Appropriations in 2023, had a subcommittee that had 5 subcommittee meetings. And all along the way, the discussion was 160 acres, and then it narrowed in on within 20 acres of Sioux Falls. And so throughout that process, a site search started. First by calling real estate agents, sometimes lawyers, bankers, farmers in the area, trying to find potential locations for a prison. And we talked about that with the summer study. We talked about that with the Joint Committee on Appropriations. What we found out is that a lot of farmers live near the land that they farm and did not want to sell land for a new prison to be next to their vicinity. We also looked at industrial park land. Industrial park land would have worked for the prison if we could have found a site that fit or was better than the site that we found. However, I would also point out that in 2009, the state put a prison in Rapid City in an industrial park, and the neighbor still sued and said you should never put a prison in an industrial park. And so you're in a situation where no matter where you put a prison, we're going to have neighbors and certainly understand nobody wants a prison in their neighborhood. But the site search was very comprehensive, talking to lots of different folks, like I said, bankers even, lawyers, economic development entities, trying to find a site that fit the criterion where there was 160 acres of property. That's important for setbacks and site security, and that's what the DLR study mentions. You need 160 acres of land, but no less than 100 acres is what that study said. And so at the end of about an 18-month process of trying to find other folks who might be interested in selling this property, the state moved forward with property that we already owned. And so that's how the site in Lincoln County, a few miles north of town here, about 10 miles outside of Sioux Falls, was selected. However, before that selection occurred, DOC did do due diligence on that property with engineers and utility providers as to what the infrastructure situation was there. And if you looked at land within 20 miles of Sioux Falls in Lincoln or Minnehaha County, the infrastructure there is actually better than a lot of other locations in rural areas. The electric line is only a few feet away. And so the state's going to have to build a substation on this property, and that substation is moving forward. The contracts have been signed, the easements have been granted, the components have been ordered. But we would have had to build a substation on any parcel of property that we bought on 160 acres in the Sioux Falls area. So that's $4 million of cost, but it's not a new cost. It's a cost that was going to be incurred. Southeastern Rural Electric will put that substation in on the state property. However, they can also use it we've allowed them to use it for future growth in the area. So it'll be for the prison, but it'll also be to the benefit of future development. The water is a similar situation. We've paid $1.5 million so far to South Lincoln Rural Water, but that was a connection fee and a capacity purchase to get into their system for a project of this size. And so again, that's $1.5 million that we would have paid at any location in Lincoln County on 160 acres for the prison needs. And so that is not a new cost. We will have a future cost of $1.5 million for the installation of the water pipe for the facility, but again, those contracts have been signed, and so the installation of that water line is going to occur to this location, and South Lincoln Rural Water is already working on that. And so we're not going to use all the water in that pipeline, so there'll be additional water available for future growth in the area, similar to the electric. The sewer, we're running a sewer pipeline over to Lennox. That agreement has been signed. The $10.5 million to the city of Lennox has already been paid. And I'm not sure if the survey work is completed. They were working on the survey work last month, and so they've been surveying the route, potential routes to get over to Lennox, and that'll be moving forward as well. On natural gas, this site there's a master meter location where the common carrier line comes into the Lincoln County and comes into the state south of Harrisburg. And so if you're talking about natural gas, this is one of the better locations you could pick in Minnehaha or Lincoln County as far as natural gas availability for the ability to have that at the site. And so there's a lot of due diligence done by DOC and the site selection team with all of the utilities, with engineers, that determined that this site would be usable for the new men's prison. And then subsequently, like I said, those contracts have been signed and that work will proceed. The site preparation work, the utilities, all of that work is already authorized by the legislature by House Bill 1017 of the 2023 session, Senate Bill, and the Senate Bill 49 of last session. And so there'll also be $3.7 million worth of dirt work and storm drainage work that's going to occur out there. Those bids have already been let for site preparation. Those were let in November, and that project will proceed as well. And so throughout this process, through the legislative summer study, the several different appropriations committees that Secretary Wasco has presented at, has continued to lay out the plan and development along the way. And so there will be final approval this legislative session, but as you'll hear from Secretary Wasco, close to $62 million, which is what we've been appropriated, has either been spent or obligated and will be spent on the development of this location. To try and move the prison would cost us at least one, if not two construction seasons to redesign the prison if we even had another location that could be found. That puts the cost of moving the prison at approximately $100 million at this point in the process. And so DOC is moving forward with a modern, safe facility as they've been laying out all along the way over the last 3 years. And I'm going to turn over to Secretary Wasco because when it comes to corrections, she's the expert on that, and going to let her talk about the prison and some of the plans and where they're at in that process.
Thank you. Morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. County Commissioners, thank you again for having us here today. I do appreciate the opportunity to get to speak with you. I'm going to go through a presentation here that's the exact same presentation that was given to the Appropriations Committee on the 14th of November. This is after we received our guaranteed maximum price. The first few slides are going to be duplicate of what Ryan just shared with you, so I'll just kind of skim over them. I don't need to put a whole bunch of discussion into them. This first slide here, as Ryan said, is a reference to the roadmap that was developed by the DLR group, a group that was brought in the 2021 legislative session to do an analysis of all of the physical plant capacities for corrections throughout the state. There was 18 recommendations. The number one recommendation was to construct a men's multi-custody facility in the Sioux Falls area. I want to take a moment just to stop and talk about what, there's a misnomer out there about a multi-custody facility and a maximum security facility. And I want to make sure that the citizens of Lincoln County as well as the county commissioners understand a multi-custody facility is described and defined as a facility that houses all custody levels. We house 4 custody levels. Close custody, which is what some people would say is maximum security. There's close custody, medium custody, minimum restricted, and minimum. The difference between minimum restricted and minimum is that minimum restricted cannot leave the grounds, the confines of our hard perimeter, and minimum can actually work outside the gates. Those are some of the people that you see that work in the communities as well as go to school at local colleges. So that's 4 custody levels. When you also look at the security levels of facilities, we have 5. There's minimum camps, which we do not have in South Dakota, minimum custody, which is what houses our minimum and minimum Rs, medium, which is a level 3, close, which is a level 4, and multi-custody, which is a level 5. Level 5 is a multi-custody facility that houses all of those levels. You would typically see that as your intake facility, which is exactly what this facility's been designed. Within those recommendations, there was some remodeling recommendations as well, building this all into our intake facility. A medium facility, a closed facility, and a multi-custody facility are going to have the highest, because of the highest level of offender that's in that facility is the type of perimeter you're going to see. A medium custody facility is going to have a double fence detection system with patrols and towers, just the same as a closed custody facility. So when we say multi-custody, we are indeed building a facility that, yes, from the outside, it has all of the, what you would consider high custody features. The inside is going to be our intake facility where everybody comes in, is diagnosed, and goes out to their appropriate custody level. The majority of the beds in this facility are going to be medium custody. Last week, point in time, changes every day. There were 1,326 medium custody inmates in our facilities. Nearly 800 of those are on the Hill. So right off the bat, to decommission the Hill, we will need 800 beds in this new facility. We have medium custody inmates that are being housed at a higher custody level at Jameson that don't need to be there. They're being over incarcerated. And then we have some that are out at the Durfee facility, which is nearly 300 beds over their design capacity. So when we ask ourselves, why do we need a 1,500 bed facility and why the math doesn't add up, I gave you the math: 800 to decommission the Hill, 300 to bring down the population over at Durfee, and then approximately 150, 140 other medium. Yes, we are going to move approximately 200 inmates into the one high custody unit, and I'll point it out on the diagram for you in just a minute. The units all look the same from the outside, but the inside of one of the units is very different from the other 6. There's only one unit that is going to house those which you would consider maximum security. The rest of them, 5 units and 2/3 of a 6th unit are going to be medium custody, where the cells for medium custody and the cells for close custody look exactly the same. It's the privileges and outside of the cell time that matters. One pod in the 6th unit, which is 72 beds, is going to be a minimum pod. That's so that we have grounds people, as well as when people come in and are diagnosed and they're pending transport out to a minimum custody facility, we have somewhere to house them. So it's short-term housing. This is just a diagram that goes back to what Ryan was talking about. Our statewide facility plan recommended 160 acres in the vicinity of Sioux Falls. That ranges within about 20 to 30 miles of Sioux Falls. And again, no less than 100 acres. We've been approached several times and asked, why don't we use the 30 acres that's to the north of the facility? It doesn't meet the minimum requirements of 100 acres, and we're definitely going to be able to build a modern correctional facility that meets the capacity needs that we have on the 28 acres. Again, this was the number 2 recommendation from the 2022 Senate Bill 144 Task Force on Incarceration Construction. They met during the summer. I did participate with that committee, and the number 1 recommendation was to replace the women's facility, which construction is underway to be completed next year. Number 2 was the men's facility. This is just a history of the legislative approval and funding. In 2022, the incarceration fund was created by Senate Bill 144, and then in Senate Bill 60 in the same year transferred $17 million, and House Bill 1340 transferred $70 million to the incarceration fund. In 2023, House Bill 1017, which Ryan's talked a little bit about this morning, authorized $52 million for the purchase of land and design services for a new prison. I'm going to go into the dollars, and you'll have all of the slides available to you for what was appropriated, what's been spent, and ongoing costs. In 2023, House Bill 1049 transferred $8 million to the incarceration fund, and then Senate Bill 49 appropriated $10 million of ARPA funding for water and sewer infrastructure, and then transferred $132 million from the general fund and $94 million from the budget reserve into the incarceration fund, with the intent of, we were expecting a guaranteed maximum price in November of 2024, which we did receive. When we talk about the layout of the facility, and I will tell you housing units, when I told you there's 7, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And again, I'm not going to go into detail about they all look exactly the same. There is one of them that is constructed internally, not like any of the others. It does have additional security features. That is where we will keep those high security offenders. These cells are modernized. The sliders are modernized. Right now, where these offenders are being kept in the Jameson Annex, they have an ability to to fluid assault our staff. This construction of this facility, it limits that so that the ability for them to be fluid assaulted is less. You can see it's a campus structure, which is consistent with the DLR report. The DLR report told us to stay away from a close structure, which is what the Jameson Annex is. It's close. Once you go into the prison, you never leave the insides of it. There's very low lighting, and we know that that is also contradictory to rehabilitation. This is a campus style. We can manage the housing units and the offenders in the housing units by their custody level and controlled movements. I'll just go ahead and keep moving so we can get to the balancing of the dollars. This is the timeline. Again, we received the guaranteed maximum price, $825 million. That includes the purchase of the land. We have worked on contracts signed for water, electricity, and gas. The city of Lenox has approved the sewer connection. And again, we are in the appeal process with the litigation. So when we come to expense updates, so the land and design, we had authority for $52 million. We've spent $25 million to date. We have about 26.5 remaining. Water and sewer ARPA dollars, which was for the sewage. $10 million was, we were appropriated or authorized to spend. $10 million has been expended. So our total remaining out of those dollars is $26,509,000. When we look at the land and design expenses, the land and design contract was $39 million. We've expended just under $14 million with $25 million remaining, and we're starting now to get some additional invoices in on design. Commissioning and services authorized $5 million, expended almost $4 million, 1.3. Land was $7.9 million, we spent $7.9. So out of the authority to spend $52 million, expenditures to date is $25.5 million, with again the 26.5, which balances out to the funding source above. This also was in our presentation on the 14th of November. I know there's been some questions amongst some of the constituents as well as some members of the legislature that we haven't talked about how much the ongoing costs are going to be. This slide was in my November 14th presentation of what ongoing costs are expected to be. Obviously, this will change as the market changes for salaries, but I don't see it being drastic. The South Dakota Correctional Facility, which is the name of the new facility, a staffing analysis was conducted as part of our CGL contract. 441 FTE is the staffing analysis. So fiscal year 25 staffing costs would be $36.7 million. Fiscal year 25 operating costs would be $18.7 million for the institution for a total of $55.4. When you deduct the existing budget for decommissioning the Hill, that's 201 FTE, which brings a balance of 240 FTE is what would be added. We have a $19.2 million staffing cost for fiscal year 25. So you take the 37 minus the 19, the remaining cost is 17.5 million. And then the operating costs, again, for fiscal year 25, 18.7 million is what's anticipated for the new facility. The existing budget operating costs are 14.6, so that leaves a remainder of $4.1 million additional ongoing, for a total of $55.4 million to operate and staff the new facility, minus the $33.8 million that will be made available with the decommissioning of the state penitentiary, leaves new ongoing costs at $21.6 million would be the additional operating costs. And again, that's estimates are based on fiscal year 25 costs. So this is total project funds. As I said, when you have the funding available, $52 million for land and design, $10 million from the ARPA appropriation, $505 million from the incarceration fund balance, plus $61 million in interest on the incarceration fund, comes to $628,164,000. And our guaranteed maximum price, with the land, $52 million. Construction came in at $737 million, plus services and miscellaneous for a total of $825 million for the new facility. Again, the guaranteed maximum price, also estimated it's going to bring 250 to 350 local jobs over the life of the project. And our partners, J.E. Dunn and Henry Carlson, were present at our committee hearing in November and answered quite a few questions for the legislature. We have, Ryan, is it down here? File, oh, there it is, okay. This is just a document that was pulled together just to answer a few questions. Where's present? So there's just a couple of questions that came to us, so our team pulled together. The myth of the new men's prison will cost Lincoln County money. The new men's prison will not cost Lincoln County money. I have received a lot of letters from constituents asking about paying for the cost of prosecution and paying for the cost of defense fees. The Department of Corrections pays for the defense costs of inmates, and that's per SDCL 23A 40-6. The AG's office is responsible for the prosecution, again, in South Dakota codified law, and all other infrastructure upgrades, as Ryan said, operational costs or expenses are paid by the state. The county is not going to incur any costs from having the state facility in your county. If you look at the Springfield facility, again, and it comes from a population of 2,000, and we have nearly 1,200 inmates are in that institution right now, and the city and county don't incur any expenses on behalf of having that facility in their small town or their small community either. Ryan talked about the new location does not have the necessary infrastructure. I think Ryan talked about all of the utilities have been confirmed, their service prior to the site being chose. We did do our site due diligence when it was made available to us with the contractor, which was recommended by CGL in the roadmap, was to make sure that we had a site assessment. And that was cleared with our contractor before a decision was made. The current site is owned by the Department of Corrections, and it must be used for public purposes, and that's, again, another reason that we're able to move forward with the institution. The new prison is a danger to the community. I can tell you that the security features of a modern facility will improve safety for the state, for the community, and also for our staff. Our staff are walking into a facility right now that I have more concerns about than I will ever have of this facility that we have constructed. There are no issues with inmate transportation. We do not open the door and let inmates walk out the door. They either have a ride that comes and picks them up, or more frequently than not, we have parole officers that pick them up at the gates, or we pay for transportation for them to get to their next location. It's in our policy. I listed our policy here, 400-6. We do not have inmates walking out the front door of any institutions. We make sure that they're getting to that parole plan that is the reason that they're able to leave the institutions. And then these are just some of the responses for their other options that could save the state money. We need 160 acres near Sioux Falls and to build a 1,500-bed multi-custody facility. That's what the DLR study recommended. That's what we followed through with. And again, as Ryan said, moving the prison is only going to increase the costs by $100 million. Everything that we have designed is for this site. Everything that we have put into place for infrastructure and for utilities is for this site. All of that money, I heard a statement that the $62 million could be squandered in comparison to gaining $300 million, and we're not going to gain $300 million. Unfortunately, DLR put costs associated with their recommendations in that report. That was in 2021. Not sure where they got the basis for those costs. They did come forward in our hearing in 2023, in session year 2023, and did say that not to follow their costs. Their costs were estimates that were based on 2021. So I will tell you, squandering away $62 million is not going to save $300 million. It's going to cost an additional $100 million, and then we will be over the $1 billion price tag that we are well under right now. A consensus option does not exist. Moving the location would just end up costing more money, as I've already stated, and then we're going to have a new group of upset neighbors. As Ryan said, if we move it out into an industrial area, there's opposition. We move it out into the country, there's opposition. We keep it in the city, 88 paces from somebody's front door, there's opposition. The cost for 1,500 beds is the same regardless of the location and other security features. A medium security cell, as I said, looks just like that of a closed custody cell. I know that this is not an attractive conversation, and I have waited a year to be able to come and talk, and I am willing to talk and explain how we got to where we are and how I would like to move forward. Options and things that I can do with the community to be good partners in this. But right now, I must put my best foot forward to start the construction of a new facility for the safety of my staff, first and foremost, and for the safety of the community in Sioux Falls. So thank you very much, and we will stand by if there's any questions.
Thank you. I have a question, just out of curiosity. Of that 825 million, the GMP, do you know how much of that is set aside for contingency?
You know, I don't readily have that available to
That's
me.
fine.
I do know, I'm part of the budget discussions, and I hear them talking about it, but I don't readily have that right in front of me.
All right, thank you. That's all I have. Anyone else have any questions?
Secretary Wasco, thank you for being here. Appreciate your willingness at this point in time to engage with the public as well as the commission. You know, I have to ask this question. First of all, am I correct in that this is the largest, in terms of dollar amount, project that state government has ever engaged in? Is that, I've heard that bandied about, but is that true?
That is my understanding.
Sure. So we've got the largest project in the history of the state here. And in hindsight, wouldn't you agree with me, or don't you think that before you settled on a site, that you should have actually came to the county commission here and engaged us, as well as talked to the NOTE people, as well as key stakeholders before making the decision on the site as opposed to afterwards?
Commissioner Aaron's, I appreciate the position, and I appreciate the question. Again, with the end in sight for the litigation, I would have liked for this to have gone a different way altogether. And right now, I do appreciate that as soon as this lawsuit is completely settled and rectified, that I'm hoping that we can come to the table and work together in the moving forward with this facility. I can't change the past. I came into this in the end. The study had already been completed. And so I would have liked to seen a lot of things been different in this, Commissioner.
No, thank you for that. And then just one question about cost. I was at the DOT presentation last night. I want to thank the DOT crew for making that presentation. It seemed fairly comprehensive, but there were a couple open-ended questions I had with regard to cost to the county. Now, I understand your comments this morning are related to DOC imposed cost to the county, presumably in the sense of, burial of prisoners who pass away, prosecution cost. Prosecution costs have now been resolved by change in state law, but counties used to pay for that cost. But one of the things left open at the DOT meeting last night was the fact that there was a question asked specifically, will the state maintain jurisdiction of the roads as well as maintenance and snow plowing cost and all that? And the answer from the DOT official was not definitive. What he said is, well, those are conversations we need to have. And in my thinking as a county commissioner, and I can only speak for myself, the state comes in, does a project, and now we're being told by DOT officials, well, you might get stuck with the cost.
Do you have a question?
And so my question is the county getting stuck with the cost for those roads or not?
No.
Commissioner, I'm going to have Brian help with that one.
No, thank you for the question, Commissioner. I'm not the DOT policy advisor anymore, but I was at one point for a couple of years and can talk to their processes. That's very normal for DOT when they're doing a project, right? They're just now starting, right? They've got draft one of their study done, and those determinations usually come later. But I can definitively say that the state is willing to build, maintain, and operate this road. There are times, and I've seen it, in fact, when I was the DOT policy advisor, we worked on it, where counties would say, hey, this is a brand-new road, the maintenance costs are less. Will you trade this road for that, or do these exchanges? And so if that was something the commission wanted to do, those conversations could be in the future. So jurisdiction and all that can be part of a whole bunch of option considerations when they do the study. And so DOT doesn't want to paint themselves into the corner depending on what the county commission may or may not want to do. But at a minimum, the state is willing to build, maintain, and operate the road that needs to be built for the prison. So I
Thank
can
you, Ryan.
say that
Appreciate it.
definitively.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
Commissioner Aaron's, we had a meeting some time ago with the DOT dealing with the 85th Street interchange, of which Lincoln County is a participant. And at that time, it is common practice for the DOT likes to give counties the opportunity to take over their roads. And I say that tongue-in-cheek because it absolves them of the responsibility that they have. And in the past, we have taken over Highway 17, if you ever travel by Lenox and places like that. So I asked him the question, when and if this prison ever comes to fruition, and you have to do the roads, who's going to pay the price? And it was my understanding from Secretary Jones that they would have to put the road in, they would have to maintain it, they would have it. And he said, of course, we'll give you, the county, the opportunity to take that over should you want to. Well,
Do you have a question, Commissioner Schmidt?
did I ever have, no, do I have a question? Yes, I wanted to know, Secretary Lasko, thank you again for coming. You know, I think there's there's a tremendous amount of discussion here about safety, and I can't overemphasize that enough. So could you beam up the slide that you have for the facility itself, the campus, please? When you look at this, and I don't know, I know nothing about prisons, and some people would say, you should stop there, you know nothing. Is each one of these pods, do they have their own internal security systems and all of that kind of stuff? I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but could you just talk about that a bit?
Okay, I will talk about what I can talk about. Commissioner, can I pause 1 second to respond back to Madam Chair? The construction contingency is 24 million.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I didn't want to forget.
No, you're fine.
So Commissioner Schmidt, I will give a high level of how it works in these units. So again, like I said, we're very simplistic. This is housing unit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. That's exactly how they will be. We don't get too difficult. Inside one of these units is 3 pods. So there's a pod within each of the units is 3 pods, pod A, B, and C. Each pod houses 72 inmates. So we have first tier, second tier, double celled, double bunked, 18 on each level. There is a security component within each individual unit that is staffed. So whereas right now and I don't know if any of you have ever been on a tour of the Hill. Have any of you ever been?
I have.
Okay, so you understand that there's a control center right in the middle, and then there's.
My own volition.
I wasn't going to ask.
So far, anyway.
If you've been in the Hill, there's a main control center in the middle, and then you have the two wings. And then there's two small control centers in the back for the side that faces the street. When they have inmates moving, that's 400 inmates per side, that one control center, that one control unit can't see both sides. They can only see one side. The control centers in these units, which will be manned 24 hours a day, each unit will have one manned 24 hours a day, can see all three units and all movement in and out the front door at all times. So the reason that I say this is because it's much safer for our staff. There's no blind spots. Our staff are always in line of vision of control staff. And then I won't tell you where in this design, but then we have a facility master control that sees everything. So it sees everything in the units, it sees everything in the yards, it sees everything in the warehouses, it sees everything everywhere except in the exam rooms and the clinics. So when you look at this, I mean, here's the parking lot. I'll show you how you go in. You can't see this one down here, but if you look here, these are towers. These are towers that go around our perimeter. So here's the parking lot. Everybody would enter, everybody. Nobody will enter this prison anywhere but through this point of entry right here. And that's where you go through metal detectors. If you bring in personal stuff you can't have, you lock it in a locker, whatnot. And then you'll see there's a tower on top of that monitors all movement. Staff will come in, staff, visitors, contractors, it doesn't matter, will come in here. This right here is administration, this over here is visitation. So when people come in, they're not going any further into our security envelope than to visitation. Inmates would come from this way to go into visitation, they'll go through several security features, but then there's that room right there for visitation with a direct access to the front door. Obviously, we have programs, strewn, dining. I can tell you these buildings here are the dining hall, the kitchen, the library, the medical clinic, the mental health unit, the laundry. There's a difference between, Commissioner Schmidt, when we talk about a prison and a jail, there's adjudicated, non-adjudicated. Non-adjudicated go to jail. They're housed in a jail pending trial, pending sentencing. That's where they go. Jails don't have to move them. They can keep them in a cell for as long as they are in jail. Once they're adjudicated, they get a whole new book of rules. They have a whole new set of constitutional values. The First Amendment right, the Fourth Amendment right, the Fifth, the Eighth, the 11th, the 14th. All of these things are the constitutional amendments that we take into consideration when making correctional policy. But it's also what the American Correctional Association takes into consideration when identifying what standards we have to build by when we build a prison. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of the facility. Again, these are programs. This over here is obviously warehouse. I know you can't see it, but it's there. This is a double-lined fence all the way around. This white road around it is a double perimeter. We will have 2 vehicles moving 24/7 around this facility. We don't have that feature right now. We don't even have the ability to walk all the way around our outer fence. We don't have a double fence right now. And then there's some other security features I can't share with you, but it's what makes this the most secure facility in South Dakota. And again, understanding that only one of these units has got the physical plant capacity that is necessary to house those roughly 200. It ebbs and flows. One day it's 180, one day it's 204. Of those really high security, what we call close custody restrictive housing inmates. That's where the restrictive housing is. And I could point out features that are on here, but it's irrelevant. Hopefully does that answer your question, Commissioner?
So I think you brought up a good point. You said you only take persons who are post-adjudication. would you take or could you take persons who are on an ICE detainer?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
No ICE detainers. I can actually tell you, we hold 27 federal adjudicated inmates right now through the Interstate Compact. We don't hold anybody that is not adjudicated.
Thank you.
Other questions from the commission?
Yeah, what about the land? You guys own this property. State of South Dakota owned this property.
The Department of Corrections owns this property, yes.
But the state of South Dakota originally owned it. I see there's a cost of land, $27 million. How does that come up if the state of South Dakota already owned it?
Do you want that one?
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. When the land was managed by School and Public Lands, and so when you use School and Public Lands, you have to pay the appraised value to the School and Public Lands Trust Fund. And so that money goes into their trust fund that's invested by the Investment Council, and the money goes to education. And so that's pretty typical. That's happened several times throughout the history of the state. So when land is under School and Public Lands, you have to make the trust fund whole by paying the appraised value. And so $7.9 million of general funds went into that trust fund, and that's invested in the stock market with the interest and dividends going back to support education. So there is a cost, even if it's internal.
Ryan, is there a reason, so did the NOPE attorneys approach you with parcels of land down there in the industrial area south of here?
The NOPE attorneys have never approached us or presented any other parcels of property.
Okay, I was just wondering if you had been approached with parcels that may have been eligible down in the industrial area here in Lincoln County.
No, during the 18 months I talked about, looked at a variety of sites, Lincoln and Minnehaha County, and consistently ran into situations. I think we've told this story. One parcel the state was trying to negotiate on, and the individual thought it was for the Minnehaha County Fairgrounds, and when they said, no, it's for the state prison, they said, oh, I won't sell it for any price. And so that was unfortunately, the pretty typical reaction. And then, because folks live near the land that they own in a lot of situations. I tell you, like the industrial park out here, the price was $3 to $4 per square foot is what they have listed, so roughly, five to seven times the internal cost of this parcel. And, there's roads put in there and already buildings that were under construction that makes putting a prison in a location like that extremely difficult. So, certainly aware that parcel is there, but, throughout the process, and after the announcement in October and the lawsuit was filed, the lawsuit was, I think we had emails talking about litigation within a day before the land purchase was even final, talking about litigation. And so, but at no point has any sites been presented or suggested. And we're moved along through the process with the Appropriations Committee and with Senate Bill 49 last session that allowed for the installation of the utilities and the ARPA money. And so, all that process has now moved forward at the current site.
Any other questions from the commission?
This is gonna be this is replacing the hill right now. The hill will be gone. It's be over.
Correct. We will decommission the South Dakota State Penitentiary.
Then what about Springfield? It still will stay as usual then, business as usual.
Correct. We will actually, so Springfield's design capacity is 963, but we have had to influx inmates up into Springfield. And it's important to understand that every time that I say the corrections industry, every time that the criminal justice system increases the influx, and I can tell you the projections are not slowing down. They are not slowing down at all. Our incarceration rate is on a steady incline, and it's not slowing down. So I just want to be clear of that. But the rate of incarceration has outpaced our capacity to where they had to open up an additional 260 beds at the Springfield facility. Opening up this facility will get Springfield back down to their design capacity. And actually, we need to be 3 to 5% below their design capacity so we can move inmates around. just a reminder, that's what they're funded for, that's what they're staffed for. So they're actually housing an additional 260 offenders without additional staffing. So, yes, it will decommission the Hill, it will bring the Springfield facility back down to its intended capacity, and it will balance out the other institutions as well as take over the high security from Jameson.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
may I ask, could you address, we've been inundated with, why can't they just go up on the Hill and go up? Would you address that?
So, Madam Commissioner, you mean build up?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a couple of things here. Jameson, if we took Jameson, it's been misquoted that Jameson houses 750 inmates. The maximum capacity of Jameson is 576. It's on my website, it's in all three of our annual statistical reports. Their maximum capacity is 576, not 750. Of that 576, there's only one unit that has the foundation and the ability to be built up one level, and that's D unit, which could house another 192 offenders. Going up with the max capacity for that facility, 192 beds, doesn't solve my 800-bed problem at the Hill, nor does it solve my 1,300-bed medium custody problem. So, and again, building up that's how you typically see jails. You see jails that build up. Jails don't have to have dining halls and libraries and law libraries and all of the, again, we go back to the constitutionality of incarceration once you've been adjudicated. So that's another reason. Then there was a proposal that we have 28 acres to the north of us that we just stack up and build 2 or 3 Jamesons to get to 1,500 beds. Again, it doesn't meet the DLR's recommendation of a minimum of 100 acres. We've already designed our prison with the complex recommendation, which is very standard in the industry. I've been to prisons, hundreds of prisons in my career, and what we're building is very standard to modern corrections. So building straight up creates problems of how do you get inmates up and down? You don't want inmates in elevator shafts. You don't want inmates unattended in stairwells together. You don't want inmates in stairwells with staff. You don't want inmates in elevators with staff. And that's why, again, we go to this complex level where we can manage the individual units and we can have response from the other units much quicker than we can if we're building straight up and down.
Secretary Lasko, follow-up question. How would that affect if you could, because you're in a flight pattern for a major runway for the airport. I'm sure FAA must have some regulations, don't they, on height, what you have to have, because our little airport has all kinds of restrictions. I can only imagine on a major airport like Sioux Falls.
So, and our understanding of where we are in the flight path or the glide path off of the end of the airway has all been, and I think Ryan would agree, it's secondary, tertiary information. We haven't gotten an official opinion from the FAA, but it is secondary conversations that we've had that would indicate that where we are at right now, where the prison is at right now, which was there before the flight line was built, would have some inhibition with the airline. Ryan, do you have anything in addition to that to add?
Well, Darwin was just reminding me, when they were doing some past repair work, they weren't able to even get a crane on the site because of some of the regulations. And so you could do the one-story Secretary Wasco mentioned. You could do the 192, but I think the height restriction on Jameson on D unit was 47 feet, so your second level mezzanine would be the most you can do, and that comes from the Sioux Falls Airport Authority. And so early on, we looked into some of those. There are also issues with the 28 acres because there's a crosswind runway there, on even being able to build on that. That runway will be decommissioned in a few years, but you still have all the other height issues. And if you wait 5 years and add inflation on and build up, you're going to add hundreds of millions of dollars to the cost of the facility to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? All right, if not, I'm going to go ahead and open this for public input. Individuals wanting to speak, make sure that you come up to the mic. You'll have 3 minutes. And this is a non-action item for the commission, so please keep that in mind. And I'm going to limit this to a total of a half hour. Go ahead.
Morning,
Please just
Commissioners.
state your name and your address.
Jess Spikesmith, 27671 Highway 11. I'm really in awe of a lot of things that are coming out from over here, and I'm really disappointed in how our state, and I'm disappointed in how our commission has been handling this. Going back to site selection, I am a member of NOPE. There have been parcels of land that have been approached to the state, offered as a trade for site selection that is better suited. This was done quite a while ago. Our belief, my personal belief, Ryan Bruner being a former member of the Department of Education, had this place pinpointed years ago and has a major hand in putting this in our county. Secondly, as far as the litigation that's handling, I want to remind everybody the reason for the litigation is because the state refused to come and talk to us. We offered, we asked, they refused, we filed litigation. Now they're using it as a crutch in order to hide all the details and be non-transparent with the locals. We've been dealing with this for over a year. We've been asking. Every public forum we have, we ask. They don't show up. Everything that we've tried to do, they don't show up. They're non-transparent. Now they're coming forth saying the litigation is null. It's not. The litigation's not done. The Supreme Court has not made a ruling, and the state has not officially approved this site. But now we have the state saying, we're so invested, you have to do this. Whose fault is that? It's not ours. We're doing our diligence. We're spending state money ahead of approval. Yes, you got approval to do your site plans and stuff like that, I get it. But this site is not approved through the state legislature. And we have people on our side that are working hard to stop that. The amicus brief filed by this commission in favor of the county, in favor of the citizens. What are you guys doing? Nothing. Have you had a single citizen walk up here from Lincoln County in favor of this? I've been to every one of these meetings. Not a single citizen in favor of any of this. But yet you guys sit behind there and aren't doing the damn thing. This is our county. This is our house. This is our lives. It's about time that you guys stand up for the county and not fold to the state. You filed an amicus brief in favor of the citizens. Follow through on it. Safety of the prison. There's not a single one of us back here that disagree that once they're inside that fence, it's going to be safe. And if it ain't, you guys don't know how to design it. What about the hundreds of people that are coming across my driveway every day to come see the drug offenders, to come see the rapists, to see the drug traffickers? Like people, stay with like people. You really think that it's going to be safe in my backyard for my kids to go outside and play when I've got 1,000+ cars a day now going to increase traffic outside of my house? And I'm a mile away from it. I'm worried about my neighbors that are right next door.
Mr. Spikesworth, your time has expired.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Tom Eastland. I live at 47740 278th Street, right next door. Thank you, Commissioner Aaron's, for stealing my first question, which was, where have you been? This decision was made a long time ago.
Sir, please direct your comments towards the commission.
My second question was critical information of this plan that affects every citizen of Lincoln County intentionally and purposely withheld and kept secret.
Sir, again, please address your comments to the commission.
As leaseholder, I was not informed until the Monday of the week that this plan was leaked to the press. There was a meeting on Thursday morning, that very Thursday morning, when the appraisal was presented and the land was transferred from school and public lands to the DOC. I was supposed to be informed, and I was not. I'd like to know if this was intentional. So far today, given what I know to be fact, the Department of Corrections credibility, I didn't think it was possible, but their credibility has reached a new low with me. So I would take everything they have to say here today with a grain of salt. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning. Kevin Jensen, 27808 484th Avenue here in Canton. A few of the comments that were made were in direct relation to some of the comments that I've made in questioning primarily in the financing of this and the location. But the DLR study was brought up several times here. The DLR study was commissioned in 2021. The report came out in 2022. The entire DLR study cost at that point was $608 million. That was for a 1,372-bed men's prison facility. But there was also another $270 million in there for upgrading at all of the other facilities. And right now, we're looking at a total cost to the state of $825 million. But there's $270 million more in that study that were relating to updating Springfield, updating Redfield, building a 300-bed minimum security prison unit in Yankton. The DLR study pretty much put together an entire package that would relieve all of our overcrowding and the stress and equalize out where all the levels of security should be. Basically, that DLR study was chucked in the garbage can, and those other studies were not even being considered. So here's my question to you: if we go ahead and if they go ahead and get this thing built, and we spend $825 million, what happens to that other $270 million? They're going to turn right around, and they're going to come back, and they're going to say, we need another $300 million now because of increased costs to update those other facilities. Why isn't all that part of this package like it was the DLR study? I have talked to over a dozen correctional officers within the system, and every one of them says the same thing to me, that a lot of the issues and the problems that are coming up were because of policy changes. One of the things I've been asking for is, we need to study those policy changes. The Corrections Commission has virtually been neutered. The Corrections Commission, by state law, says it shall assist corrections, not may or will. They shall assist corrections in policy decisions and those things, and they have been relatively ignored. What I'm trying to say is, we need to maybe take a little more, a moratorium and try and figure this thing out in the long haul. Nobody is saying we do not need to decommission the hill. Nobody, no legislator will say that. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Representative Jensen.
Mike Hoffman, 73rd, Highway 11. Comprehensive zoning. You guys just went through and spent a pile of money doing your comprehensive zoning. This meets zero of it. Makes 0 sense. You're allowing this to come in, and no one's saying a blasted word. This is going to screw up the whole Lincoln County zoning. I'm in construction. I'm so effing mad right now I can barely talk. I come in here for a building permit and have to jump through hoops. You're going to allow a 2,000 people, whether it's inmates or employees or whatever, to come in the middle of the county, and you ain't standing up and talking to anybody and raising hell. You're allowing them to pump sewer 13 miles to Lennox. But it's okay. You're letting them do their presentation like this is a good, you're letting them, oh, we're going to have guards here and little, it's not even approved, and we're letting them give you a little dance. I'm just appalled about the crap that we're sitting listening to. And you guys aren't standing up, letting them drop a city in the middle of our county that isn't zoned, don't have roads. Oh, it's 24 million, okay? No furniture, we forgot to tell you that. What about the millions of dollars for the road? Oh yeah, we're gonna build a road to nowhere. You go to the meeting last night, well, we can't talk about what this road's for. Really? We're gonna build this big old road, but we can't talk about what it's for? How dumb do you think we are? We're gonna spend all this money, but we can't talk about what it's for. This is insane. I cannot believe the amount, the last 2 years, year and a half, learning of the political process, how sick and disgusting this is. The crap that goes on, that, this, because Christie says this, we're gonna do this. We're gonna build a road. Why? Why are we gonna build a road? Well, because Christie says so. We're gonna build a prison because Christie says so. Somebody needs to stand up and say, this makes no effing sense. This isn't crazy why we're doing this. Somebody stand up and say, please, let's look at the checkbook. This makes no sense. Quit ruining our community.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Anybody else want to come up?
Good morning, Commissioners. Michelle Jensen, Canton, South Dakota. I must share some of the same sentiments that my husband did there. I'll just try and be not quite as fiery about it. I would like to know how much the commission spent on the new comprehensive plan, because I share the same sentiments. Apparently, we are going to throw that out the window. I also agree that you should all be appalled that that is just being dropped in your county. That has nothing to do with that comprehensive plan. At the DOT meeting last night, at least the DOT was trying to be a little bit transparent, there was a lot of talk about the roads. And when you ask them, yes, the state is paying to build these roads, but who gets to maintain them? Well, we're going to see. We'll see about the jurisdiction later. Possibly Lincoln County taxpayers. Good chance of it. The sewer to Lennox. Yeah, okay. Some ARPA funds, the state's going to pay to build it. What about all the construction? What about all the county funds and the township roads and everything? You didn't talk about the 13 miles that go through Lincoln County to build that. It's crazy. That's crazy. The cost of this county is going to be crazy. I don't think anyone's really addressed we're going to build this billion-dollar monstrosity, and there's so many questions that are unanswered yet. All the emergency services. Have we talked about that? I mean, isn't it volunteer going out to there now? And you can say, well, they're all going to be contained within this facility, but aren't they currently contained within the facility in Sioux Falls? And then, so why does 911 get called there? Why does the fire department go now? Are you going to put all of that on the volunteer facilities around? Where do these prisoners go when they're released? I mean, there's not a bus stop out there. Are we going to make that too in this new city that didn't fit in the comprehensive plan? We're just going to continue right on building there, huh? Yep, great. How about the affected properties around? Is there any type of a plan? It is greatly impacting those property values, whether or not anyone wants to admit that or not. Are you guys, as our county commission, going to see our property taxes go down? Or actually, are we going to see them go up because there was a value of $25,000 an acre? Is that realistically what the land is going for out there? Or, I mean, maybe you guys are going to see that happens to those of us that are affected around there. So, again, look at the comprehensive plan that you guys did all the work on. And one more thing. There was other pieces of property. That is absolutely a lie that there has been no approach. There have been industrial zoned pieces of property. And maybe this land was a little bit cheaper, but by the time you build roads, you mess up the county, you mess up the townships, you build sewers, you build waters, you essentially build a city, maybe paying a few more bucks for a piece of land where it was already at might have been a little bit cheaper. Or better yet, just leaving it right where it's at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Carla Lems, 47980 281st Street, Canton. I'll try not to be redundant, as some of the things that I was going to say have already been said. But I would just like to also say that I sat through that comprehensive plan that the county has proposed. Again, nothing was in there about a prison basically dropping a city right in the middle of our county. When I was first approached about this, I was told they were looking for land in the Lincoln County area or in the Sioux Falls area. Would we know anything along the interstate was one of the things that we were tasked with, or that we were asked from a realtor. I believe I got a call from a realtor that was asking that, and I was like, you know, so in my mind, it's like, well, they want to find somewhere along the interstate. This certainly does not fit that requirement of being along the interstate. I did go to the stakeholder meeting yesterday afternoon with the DOT. I thought they did a good job, but they said that the money for this is coming out of their STIP fund. But that money is, I will remind people, that is our taxpayer money, one way or another. And so that, I believe, is not in the $825 million. So that will be in addition to that. I will also just remind the commission that this is not, this has not been approved finally from the legislature. So I believe there will be two bills this year. One will be approval for the location, and the other will be the appropriation of the funds for this. So it's not a done deal as of right now. And so while I appreciate, you know, the Ryan Bruner and those guys coming, that, you know, this is a proposal at this point. This is not a done deal. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Joan Lund. I'm at 27726 South Dakota Highway 11, and I agree with a lot of things that have been said, and I really am upset with the state for the way they've come in. They are coming in as a bad neighbor. They're not giving us any information. I don't care if somebody moves in like this, they're not setting the precedents for us. If we have problems down the line, are we going to hit the same? I mean, this is just inviting trouble. If we can't get the answers when they're starting, how are we supposed to progress in the future? They say that we don't have to prosecute the inmates. Who has to defend them? Are we going to have to defend them because they're in our county? I do believe, you know, if there's a prosecution, I mean, you know, they said they prosecute, will they defend? Do we have to pay for the defense? That was one of them. They talk about this plan that they have. Sorry, I'm really, really nervous about this. They talk about the plan that they are drawing all the information from. What did they do with all of the information that said about corrections, as far as education, as far as working with the inmates, as far as all that sort of stuff? Is that included? We're not hearing anything about that. And I know, if I remember correctly, this plan came out with a lot of things that they haven't even incorporated into the one in Sioux Falls. So now we're going to get their problem from Sioux Falls down here, and we don't have, you know, we have no idea what they're going to do. And are they going to be a good neighbor when they're out there? You and I both know when somebody moves in, especially something like this, who are we going to go to if we have problems? What is going to be the details? Because it's not going to go in smoothly. There's going to be all sorts of problems. The DOT is even saying at the meeting yesterday, well, they're not going to fix the road until the project is done. Well, what's they going to do with all the county roads if they're not going to do the work until it's done? Or are they going to build the roads, have all the construction people go through, tear up the roads, and then do them again? You know, there's a lot of variations. And who do we go to talk to? I mean, we couldn't even get the information right away. When we were talking to them in the first place, we had to sue in order to be able to get this. So, you know, it just looks like we just can't get the cooperation from them. And what are we inviting into our community? Just doesn't look good.
Thank you.
Just a note, commissioners on the financial side. This county's hurting for money. We all know that. The myth of development taxes covering the services and needs required is just that. It's a myth. It's obvious to everyone. It does not work. The more we grow, the higher our taxes are getting. Somebody mentioned a town. This will be like a town. But keep this in mind. None of the residents pay any taxes of any kind. The owner of the property doesn't pay any taxes. The owner of the facility doesn't pay any taxes of any kind. School and Public Lands for 32 years was a good resident, a good citizen of our community, and a good citizen of Lincoln County. I was instructed to do all my purchasing here, do all my business here within the county. They didn't like the idea of taking the land off the tax rolls. So I paid the taxes as part of my rent because they wanted that kept on. You're looking at a completely different story here. This is going to do nothing but cost, cost, cost. Thank you.
Scott Montgomery, Fairview, South Dakota. I think something we need to consider is the present location, when the weather's bad and there's 3 feet of snow and the wind's blowing, those people can get there. Those employees can change shifts. You stick this out in the middle of the county and we have a blizzard here, how are those people going to, how are those employees going to get there at the next shift? I mean, this is reality. We live where places where the weather isn't ideal. I think we need to take that into consideration. You know, the present prison was there before this place was a state. Those people have adapted to that, they've lived with that, they've known that when they came here. Now you're gonna plop this out in the middle of us and we don't want it here. And I'm asking this commission to take a stand. You're here to represent the citizens of Lincoln County, and I've not heard one resident of Lincoln County in favor of this, not a single one. So I ask that you stand up and represent the people that put you in office and fight for us and say no to this in any and every way you can. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public input on this item? All right, I'm just going to open it up, back up to you folks if you want to address any of those public comments, but you certainly are not required to.
Thank you, Madam Chair and County Commissioners. I'm not going to, I don't want to come back and rebut anything. Again, I understand this is an emotional day. I understand the perception of the neighbors, and I accept that. And we will move forward, again, pending the outcome of the Supreme Court decision. And I can assure you that either way, I will come back down and I will meet with everybody in the community and I will answer your questions as best that I can. So thank you again for the opportunity and for welcoming us here today. And thank you for your honesty.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is board action to approve a resolution appointing Harold Timmerman as applicant agent for a hazard mitigation grant program and building resilient infrastructure and communities grant program. Harold, are you in our audience? Oh, there you are.
Good morning, Harold Timmerman, Lincoln County Emergency Management. I would like to bring forward Harley Ferguson from CCOG to address this with me.
Hello, my name is Harley Ferguson. I'm from Sioux Falls area in CCOG.
Is there a flash drive?
Oh.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Here we go, we got some help here to retrieve the flash drive.
Thanks, Carter.
You can buy another one, but.
Go ahead, Harley.
Okay, so there's the CCOG admin agreement, which is after we apply for the funding. So what we're applying for is the Minnehaha Lincoln County Pre-Disaster Mitigation Plan to update it. So the deadline is February 14th of this year. And so CCOG is contracting with Lincoln and Minnehaha County to submit the application for the funding to update the plan. So if you have any questions.
All right, first I'm going to take some public input on this agenda item, if there is any. All right, commissioners, do you have any questions?
Nope.
All right, if there's no public input, no questions, I consider a motion to approve the resolution.
Harold, any comments?
Madam Chair, if allowed, I would add that the cost to the county is covered by in-kind match, so there's no dollar amount that gets spent by the county itself.
Thank you, Harold.
Madam Chair, move for approval.
Second.
I've got a motion by Schmidt, a second by Aaron's. If there's no further discussion, Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Otten,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Putnam,
Yes.
Landine.
Yes. All right, next item on our agenda is to appoint board members, or members of the board, to other boards and committees. And I believe we have a proposed list. Paul, can you put that board and committee list up on the projector? Yep. And blow it up, please. Thank you. Is there any way to expand that at all?
Give me one.
Okay,
Don't want to go, oh,
just so everybody can see it.
yeah. 1 second.
So
Is that
I'd like just everybody looking at this, I mean, a lot of people stayed on the same things. Some things moved around with the new commissioners. But what I would propose is a motion to approve this slate of board and committee positions. And, we can discuss that first, but then I'll ask for public input on that.
I'll make that motion. Betty Otten.
I've got a motion to approve this slate of board and committee positions. Is there a second?
Go ahead, second.
I guess I'm not sure what's going on, so.
These are, Commissioner, these are the various organizations that we have representation
I
of.
see that there.
And
yeah.
for example, you would be a member of the Emergency Management Communication, and you'd work with Harold Timmerman
Yeah.
on that?
I do see that there, but I guess I'm just looking at everything here.
I would second Commissioner Otten's motion to
Okay.
approve.
And then why doesn't everybody just continue to look that over? I'll take any public input, if there is any right now.
Linda Montgomery, Fairview, South Dakota. This wasn't posted online this morning.
We usually discuss this at the first meeting, and people
Okay.
agree or don't agree, or,
I thought-
and these positions get assigned. So it is on the agenda. The
Okay,
list
no,
itself was
yeah.
not.
Last year, I think we got to see it before the meeting, but that's all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public input? All right, if not, I've got a motion and a second. Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Otten,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Putnam,
No.
Landine.
Yes, motion carries. And then that's why we took item 9 off of our agenda, since that was covered with item 4. And then we'll go to our item number 5 on regular business, board action to reschedule a couple of meetings, one for September 9th and one for November 11th. Paul, the September 9th one, why are we rescheduling?
That would be for the South Dakota Counties Association annual conference.
Okay, and then the November 11th is Veterans Day?
Correct.
So we're moving those just to the immediate following Thursday?
Yeah, whenever whenever you would like to move them. I think standardly, or in the past, when we've moved things like that, we've just moved it to the Thursday, but whatever day you guys would like to move it to.
I think to keep with our deadlines and schedules that we have, other things that we should just move those meetings to the immediate following Thursday. So the September 9th would go to September 11th, and the November 11th would go to November 13th. Is there any public input on this agenda item? All right, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
A motion by Aaron's to approve the reschedule. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's,
Yes.
Otten,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Putnam,
Yes.
Landine.
Yes. Motion passes, and then we'll move on to item 6 on our agenda, which is board action to designate 3 legal newspapers per SDCL 718-3. Good morning, Sherry.
Good morning, Sherry Lund, Lincoln County Auditor. We need to appoint 3 legal newspapers. The 3 legal newspapers that are produced in Lincoln County are the Sioux Valley News, T-Weekly, and Lennox Independent. So my recommendation would be to appoint those 3 papers.
Does anybody have any questions for Sherry?
I'd move to additional one beyond those 3, and that would be to the Dakota Scout.
I
As
think
we-
that,
Huh?
if I might,
Yep.
it is not a good use of taxpayer money to have additional newspapers when we don't need to, in my opinion. If we have these 3 newspapers as our legal newspapers, people will know to go to those papers to look for the information. We do spend a lot of money on advertising.
I understand. However, if I take these 3 newspapers, I'm not covering where the majority of the people in our county live, and that is in Sioux Falls. And if we don't have any idea there, there's nothing wrong with the Sioux Valley News, there's nothing wrong with the Lennox Independent, but their readership is probably a total of 5,000 people. And may I remind everybody that we have about, the majority of our population live up there, so it seems to me only fair that we have some means of communicating with those people, and that to me is the Dakota Scout because they've done a tremendous job.
Do you want 4 papers then?
Sherry, thank you for bringing this forward. I've got a couple questions. Sioux Valley newspaper. All 3 of these newspapers, you need to pay them in order to get them, correct? They're subscription-based.
Subscription-based, yep.
And the Dakota Scout is free, right?
I don't, is it free? I don't know, I pay for mine.
It's free. If you're paying, you're wrong.
It wouldn't be the first time.
I'll get you a free one. So I just want to establish a couple facts there. And then also, when I look online with Sioux Valley and T, I'm not able to necessarily access the legal classified section over the internet. But with the Dakota Scout, I am. And so what I would probably agree with you with is it's not a good use of taxpayer money to do 4. I think 3 is appropriate. I think one of these is going to have to be on the chopping block. But I think that all things considered, it's better to go with number 1, a larger newspaper circulation that's free, that can be accessed over the internet. Hands down, that should be number 1. So I'm going to move or second the motion to do the Dakota Scout, and then I don't care whether it's T, Sioux Valley News, or Lennox, that's 2 and 3. But I would point out to the local newspapers, I understand that county commissions and school boards and city councils pump a lot of money into journalism and into news gathering in the form of legals and classifieds. But if you are a newspaper and you are coming and asking for taxpayer money, you have got to be thinking in the future, how do I compete with another news outlet that hands their papers out for free, that puts their legal and classified on the internet, not behind a paywall, And so if you're Sioux Valley or Lennox or T, you can't compete with what the Dakota Scout is offering. And I know this goes on in other newspapers around this state, and I understand the Dakota Scout doesn't touch them. But as far as I'm concerned, the Dakota Scout is a much better deal for transparency as well as for taxpayers. And, you know, there's a lot of things that go into the legals and classifieds like probate. I do a lot of probate cases. I got to publish those for 3 weeks straight. So in my mind, I say we do the Dakota Scout, and then I don't know if the other commissioners here care whether it's going to be Sioux Valley, T, or Lennox, but I would do just 3, and that's who my number 1 is.
Drew, can you come up, please, for a second? The question in my mind is, these are papers that are within Lincoln County, correct?
Correct.
Or is it a circulation base? Like, I'm,
So pursuant to the statute, you can see it's 718.3. It's the 3 new legal newspapers printed in the county. Now there, we can get into semantics, I guess, about printing. I know there's where newspapers are printed these days is up in the air, but my recommendation to the board would be to adopt 4 then, with the 3 in the county, located in the county, in addition to Dakota Scout.
so, here's my thoughts. I think we keep with the Sioux Valley News, the T paper, and the Lennox paper, because that definitely fits our statutory obligation. But I also support advertising in the Dakota Scout for the reasons that have been stated. I actually like their legals because they're bigger and I can see them. So, and I agree, they're more readily available. So I think that's money well spent. I'm totally on board with the transparency, and we spend money on a lot of other things, and I think that our agendas and what we have going on in the county is important enough to spend those funds. But as far as the 3 legal, I would say those 3, but Sherry, where do these budget items come out of? Are they commission budget items?
They are.
Okay.
So I understand we're not going to publish legals in the Dakota Scout,
I
Madam
did
Chair?
not, that's not what I said.
Okay,
I'm saying we have to have 3 legal newspapers, and we can also publish in Dakota Scout. It doesn't need to be a defined
okay.
legal, but would council, how do
think
you
it's-
want us to handle it?
So traditionally, in the past, Lincoln County Commission has adopted those 3 legal those newspapers as their legal newspapers, and then directed staff to publish in additional papers. So traditionally, that has been the case, so there's precedent here. So those
Wait.
would be the 3 designated legal newspapers with addition of directing staff to publish in the Dakota Scout, if that's the direction the commission
Because
wants
we
to
were
go.
doing it in the Argus, correct?
Correct.
We did
That-
the Argus for years, but here's my question. Sioux Valley News isn't actually printed in Lincoln County, is it?
And that's,
It's printed outside of the county.
I think it's in Iowa, isn't it?
We should not be doing a taxpayer handout to the Dakota Scout, no offense, Joe Snevy, because they're favored or because they lobbied us. Somebody's got to be on the chopping block. If the statutory requirement is Sioux Valley News needs to be printed in the county, they're out. They're not printed here. The publishing of legal classifieds, we need to stop this notion here in South Dakota that this is a handout from county commissions, school boards, and city councils to these local outlets. They are not entitled to taxpayer money. We should only publish with the newspapers that we need to in order to get the word out, period. So I just support doing 3 of them, and that's it.
The Lennox Independent and the T Weekly is the same paper,
Well,
Well, it's not really.
basically.
But it's not.
It's published, or it's printed in the same place, owned by the same company. I guess I would be inclined to say that if it isn't printed in Lincoln County or in South Dakota here,
Well, we ought to be doing business with newspapers that print inside the state of South Dakota. So that way, your property tax dollars get recirculated in the form of not only with an in-state entity, but that also goes towards sales tax that further perpetuates the economy. So if you're outsourcing outside the state of South Dakota, we shouldn't be doing business with you, period. Or change the way, or if you want taxpayer money, use a different vendor here in state.
So what do we have for a motion?
Well, at first I've got to take public input on this, and I wasn't expecting this to be this contentious of all the things on our agenda today, but is there any public input on this agenda item? All right. So then, Joel, you had started to make a motion or made a motion, and then there was some comments after that. So do you have a motion?
Here's my motion. My motion is we adopt Dakota Scout, T-Weekly, Lennox Weekly as the 3 legal newspapers.
All right. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second Otten.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion amongst the commission? All right, if not, Alicia, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Otten?
Yes.
Schmidt?
No.
Putnam?
Yes.
Landine?
Yes. The motion carries. All right, next item on our agenda, board discussion with possible action to reduce the budget authority in the commission budget. Go ahead, Sherry.
So as part of the commission budget, you have in there for the commission administrative officer, total budget of $181,653.19. Due to previous actions from the board, it's my belief that you are not intending on hiring that position. So I'd like to reduce the budget, as I have outlined in the resolution, to reflect that not being hired.
Any public input on this agenda item?
Move to approve.
Got a
Second.
motion to approve and a second.
Did we hear that we're going to reduce the budget? I figured we'd get public comment.
Reduce your spending, yep.
Reducing the budget.
No standing ovation?
You're not reducing the outlay. You're just reducing the authority.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. There was no public input on this item. Will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Otten?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Putnam?
Yes.
Landine?
Yes. Next item on our agenda, board action to appoint one commissioner to the RAIF Improvements Fund, Rural Access Infrastructure Improvement Funds.
Did you notice how I made them easier as we went down?
Thanks.
You're always thinking.
So, August 2022, we established a committee to do the RAIF, the Rural Access Infrastructure Improvement Funds. With the Commissioner Gibbon being off the board, that position for the commissioner is now open, so I need to appoint, or you need to appoint somebody to that board.
All right, I can't make a motion, but I'm gonna suggest that Betty Otten take that over.
I have no clue what it is, but I'm with you.
Rural action, that is where you're going to disseminate monies to townships that apply for certain projects. And since Representative Otten does serve that particular district, I would second that motion.
I didn't make the motion, I need a motion.
Okay, I will make the motion to put Representative, our Commissioner Otten on that particular board.
You guys are jumping ahead of me and asking for public input. Is there public input on this one? All right, now I've got a motion by Schmidt. Do I have a second?
Second.
I've got a motion by Schmidt, second by Aaron's, to appoint Commissioner Otten to the RAIF. Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Otten?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Putnam?
Yes.
Landine?
Yes. All right, next item, we skip to item 10 on our regular agenda. It's board discussion and action to approve our commission salaries.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tracy
morning.
Humphrey, your HR Director. This is board discussion and potential action to approve commissioner salaries. So as required by SDCL 775, you guys need to decide what your compensation will be for the year. During the budget process, the commissioners were allocated a 5% cost of living adjustment, as is noted in the facts and vetting. And then, however, other elected officials back in November were approved for a 5.5% cost of living adjustment. And so I put both options there available to you and happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have questions for Tracy? You put 5.5% in, Tracy?
Yeah, so there's 5% listed in there, as that is what has been budgeted, and then 5.5% is what the other elected officials received. There was an error in the budgeting process. Normally, we try to have everyone match at the 5.5%, since elected officials do not receive a step increase. The total cost to increase to go to 5.5% would be $737.85 to the budget. So if you guys want to match what the other elected officials are, that's what the additional cost would be.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for staff? All right, if not, is there public input on this item?
Scott Montgomery, Fairview. Two of you knew what your wages were when you came here. You just got elected. I would hope one of the others would vote no to raise your wages. I mean, things are tough around the country, and I would hope you would honor the taxpayers to keep doing what you're doing for what you're doing it for. Thanks.
Any other input? All right, is there any board discussion or motion?
Move to keep the commissioner's salaries set as they currently are.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, we have 3 commissioners coming up in 2 years. I've been coming down here on my own for 4 years and 8 months. So I know what it means to, serve with a servant's heart. I understand that. And I understand where Commissioner Aaron's is coming from as well. However, you have to be somewhat forward-thinking into the future, because we're not, as my husband is fond of saying, we're not Mayberry anymore. And for you to get some people that are looking to come on board for what the pay is, when we're the #1 growing county in the state, and we're either 6 or 8 in the nation, I think that I think our increase should be 5.5.
Thank you, and I agree. Us commissioners, we do a lot more than just sit up here during these meetings. I myself have weekly meetings, monthly meetings, both for our courthouse, for public defender task force. And, we do take those things on when we accept this job, but our costs go up just like everybody else's. And so I'm going to ask this commission to support this increase. There were arguments made, I know, by Commissioner Aaron's in supporting a 5.5% for every other elected official in this county, and we are elected officials in this county and deserve to be treated the same. Thank you.
Madam Chair, always salaries are, you look at, but you want to follow me around? How many trips do we make for ICAP? Do we make up to Madison or Brookings to go to meetings on a continual basis, sometimes 2-3 times a month? Sometimes you have to go to Pier. Now, we don't take mileage. We don't take any mileage for that. We don't take any meals for that. We take what salary we got, and we make do. We're not alone, but we are a county that is approaching 80,000 people, and when you compare our salaries to that of Pennington County or to Minnehaha County, I think we're well in line under. But you don't take the job for the compensation, but at some point in time, you got to look at how many hours a week you put into this thing. And, when I first started, you could come 3 times a week, and you could pretty well cover it. Well, now you're going to be up to 20 or 30 or 40 hours a week when you really do all of the things that you have. if you're gonna look at all of the roads that you gotta look at, you gotta look at the, rezoning things that are going to impact our county, or you spend a lot of time talking just to people, which you should do on a basis. So I don't have any heartburn with the 5.5%. I really don't. And I kind of agree with Commissioner Otten. You better have that set up there if you're going to attract some good people. And that's, I think that's a truism. So anyway, I won't be voting for the 5%.
I've got a motion and a second.
Call the question.
Well, I'd like to restate the motion. The motion was to leave everything as is. And so, Alicia, will you go ahead and call the roll, please?
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Otten?
No.
Schmidt?
No.
Putnam?
I'm not 100% sure which way you're going here.
Well, you seconded a motion to stay where our current salaries are. And so that's the motion that we're voting on.
So in other words, you vote yes to leave it that way.
Correct.
Yes.
Landine?
No. Can I get a substitute motion, please?
Madam Chair, to leave it at a 5.5%, as suggested by our HR director.
Second, Otten.
Got a motion and a
Yes.
second? Any public input on the motion? If not, Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's?
No.
Otten?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Putnam?
No.
Landine?
Yes. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is to award a bid for a road widener to Butler Machinery Company for $77,484.41. Good morning, Jared.
Good morning. Yes, just as it states, if you remember, for the new commissioners a month ago, I was here, we did some changing around in our 5-year plan on our budget to better fit the needs of the department, especially after the flood, for all the shouldering that we're gonna need to do. So we did go to bid, advertised, and Butler Machinery was the only bid we got back. So looking to award.
Jared, what does the road widener do?
So it's currently the machine that we have is a self-propelled machine, its own diesel engine, pushes trucks as the trucks dump into it, load it, and then it meters it off to the side. Well, then we got to come with motor graders and a fleet of equipment behind to lay a nice shoulder out. This thing is an attachment that'll go on our payloader, and it'll be used, and it meters it off to the side, but it also strikes it off. So now I have to use less equipment, less manpower on the ground to deliver the product.
And when you talk about delivering the product, you're talking about?
Gravel.
Okay.
But this machine also has a tempered belt in it, that if we needed to on an oil road where we had a seam stretch apart where we needed to go in and grind it out, we could set it up and we could pull out asphalt with it too. Yep, multi-use.
This was budgeted, correct?
The machine itself wasn't budgeted, but we're moving things around within our budget to pick this one up and dropping another one off. So it's not costing any more money. It's within our budget to pay for this.
Thank you.
Really had me jumping up and down if this was a parking lot paver.
I think I did make that, I think I did say, hey, I could come back the week after and we could go for a paver.
Because, well, I don't know about buying it, but you may have a new commissioner on here who knows how to operate our current paver,
Yeah?
who may give you a demonstration on the fact that the highway department could pave the parking lot with our existing equipment.
Nice. You know, I remember not that long ago when we were asked to do the city street out here, when they moved the curb in. We set our paver up in the gravel over there, and I would have taken suggestions too on how to get it unstuck from the hole it was in. So, always up for suggestions.
So when you said you're moving things around in the department, what
Yep.
are you not, what's getting moved around?
We did have in for a trailer, another trailer to be pulled behind a dump truck. That one we're gonna push off.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jared? All right, any public input on this item? If not, I'd ask for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Aaron, second by Schmidt. If there's no further discussion, Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Otten?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Putnam?
Yes.
Landine?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have our opportunity for public comment for items not on the agenda.
The,
Oh, I'm sorry. I totally forgot. That was item 4 from the consent, correct? All right. Moving back to item 4 from the consent, which is now the last item on our regular agenda. Whereas SDCL 7-7-25 states that the Board of County Commissioners by resolution may authorize county officials to attend educational conferences, meetings, and conventions conducted within a 500-mile radius of the Lincoln County Courthouse, 104 North Main, Canton, South Dakota, for up to 3 days pertaining to the betterment and advancement of county government. Therefore, be it resolved that the county highway superintendent, auditor, treasurer, register of deeds, state's attorney, sheriff, director of equalization, planning and zoning director, IT director, 911 coordinator, building superintendent, human resources director, GIS director, 4-H advisor, emergency manager director, and their respective staff be authorized to attend conferences, meetings, and conventions for the purpose set forth in SDCL 7725, and that the mileage and necessary expenses to attend such be allowed. This resolution shall be for the fiscal year 2025. It was on our consent agenda. Is there any discussion or questions for staff on this agenda item?
Well, the question was, what does this cost? Well, didn't you ask that, Linda?
Yes, I did.
Okay. It's kind of a budgeted item, isn't it?
It is.
Currently amongst the funds, we have 85,100 budgeted for various trainings through different departments. And we have 128,847 for mileage. Keeping in mind that in that mileage, we have things like jurors and witnesses, and other, the things like that. So we do have budgeted amounts. It's not a blank check.
Do you know, Sherry, off the top of your head, what we spent for fiscal year '24 for conferences?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
But the going back to the history on this is, so that the department heads used to come in every time they needed to go to Pier, every time they needed to go to Rapid City. So I don't know how many, it was before I was auditor, this resolution was put into place so that the auditor, the treasurers, and all the other departments didn't have to come in and get permission from the board every time they wanted to go to Pier. So that's the thing behind the resolution, and we pass it every year ever since that happened.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, the other part is, money is money, it costs money, but you always want to encourage your staff to attend these conferences and meetings so that they are brought up to speed on the latest technology, the latest methods, and new things that are staying current. And I think that this is money well spent for investment as they make and improve their departments, or they run it more efficiently. So, I mean, it's an expense item that you invest in your own staff to remain current and to bring the best product to the taxpayer. So, it's my comment.
Thank you. Thank you. Any public input on this agenda item?
Linda Montgomery, Fairview, South Dakota. Thank you, Sherry, for giving us the numbers. My question for this is, we have all this training going on with a number of people. How is that allocated? How is it, the commissioners versus the auditor versus the treasurer? How is it broken down? And I liked, the auditor, Len, talked about they used to have to come to you guys to get the okay to go do these conferences. So thank you. One thing I liked about that is in the private sector, we had to do that all the time. If I wanted to go to a conference for my profession, I had to get my employer to okay that and be specific. How is that really going to affect what you're doing in your job? Now, in the 2+ years I've been coming, I've only really heard one report, not one, the only one I've heard report on going to things, and maybe I missed it, was you, Commissioner, Commissioner Smith, usually gives an update on what he brought forward from that visit. But one thing I also think in the private sector, because of the automated systems, there's a lot more Zoom meetings, a lot more online that you can do and get to the same result without the travel expense. When you're going nationally to these, you can do it, the expense gets cut down. And, we heard today how our taxes have gone up. And I just want to make sure that I hear prudence for what we're spending. And like I say, I come from the private sector. I had to always get approved for what I was going. That training might have, helped the facility, but they said, right now, we can't afford this. You're going to have to figure out a different way, and sometimes I paid for it myself. But I thank you for giving me the numbers. I would like to see a better accountability for how it's being spent. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public input on this item? All right, if not, I would consider a motion.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Got a motion by Schmidt, motion to approve, and is there a second?
Otten, second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any discussion amongst the commissioners?
I think this is a typical resolution that we pass every year. But I think in order to address Linda's concerns, and maybe the verbiage here that's being used this year isn't the same as last year. I don't know. I don't recall. Probably is. But the real way, Linda, that we can manage the budget is that anybody who wants to travel for, this training has to put that in their budget every year.
They do.
And that's what they do. Thank you, Commissioner Schmidt. And then it gets passed through the budget. And it's the vote on the budget, which has a public hearing, which people can come to. And if they don't like the travel that these departments are going to do, they can object at that point in time. And as folks know, I've never voted for a budget the entire 6 years I've been on this commission. But I will say this, a lot of the training that these folks go to, some of it is mandatory. Some of it is critical. I don't think anybody, at least since I've been on the commission, is going to training that's like vacation in the Bahamas or something like that. Although I'm sure some would like to. But I do think most of the training, all of the training is for the betterment of these folks, like for example, Director of Equalization, they have to get certified every year. And then these sheriffs and deputies, they have to get certified on certain things. And the state's attorneys go to the state's attorneys conference and they do CLE, that's called Continuing Legal Education. And then the auditors, the treasurers, and the Register of Deeds, they go to an annual conference where they get some annual training. And, you can quibble around the edges about whether the training is sufficient or not. I know I sure have. But I don't think that, I'll just say this. I see almost all the counties at these conventions. So we're well within the mainstream to be traveling to participate in this stuff. And I think if there was something out of line, it probably would bubble up. But I don't think the real fluff in the budget is in agenda item number 4. I think it's in other areas of our county budget that are ripe for discussion. So there you go.
Thank you. Alicia, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Otten? Yes. Schmidt?
Yes.
Putnam?
Yes.
Landine?
Yes. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to our opportunity for public comment for items not on the agenda. If anybody wants to come up, now would be the time to do so.
Say, I have a question. Are we allowed to say anything as far as, the jail or the prison?
We don't have anything on our agenda for board action on that.
We can't publicly speak.
It's
About
not,
it.
it's not properly on the agenda for discussion or board action. The state was here to make their presentation, and we were able to ask them questions, and we certainly did do that, but it's not something we're making any decision on, so it's not.
No, I meant, I just was wanted to explain or ask or about why they're actually putting it here and not putting it out by pier.
And that would have, I mean, I think they answered that question to a certain extent, and you certainly could have asked
And
them.
I come to realize that now, but
Sure.
it is what it is, I guess.
The agenda's been closed. This is the time for public comment on items not on the agenda. There's a maximum of 30 minutes allowed, no more than 5 speakers on the same topic.
Teresa Zomer, Sioux Valley News here in town. I did see that, and I just want to say that all public notices are free online. You can search them. You can look at them anytime you want at SouthDakotaPublicNotices.com.
Were you here when we were on that agenda
I was
item?
on the video. I was not here in person because I am working. Can I be on the agenda next time, please, to discuss this? That's all I'm asking.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, if not, we'll keep moving on our item. Drew, we have commissioner reports, they're informational reports.
Were you going to do the commission report?
Yep, I just called for
That's what you
it.
just said.
Oh, yep.
Well, Madam Chair, I want to welcome the 2 new members to the commission, to Commissioner Otten sitting here next to my right, and then Commissioner Putnam. So welcome to the commission, and look forward to working with you. In terms of my report, and maybe Commissioner Putnam, this goes towards what you were just asking. This is the point in time where the commissioners, you can just say what you want to. And that's the way I interpret it. And we were just limited to questions during the presentation from the or Department of Corrections, and I appreciate them coming in. They have a tough job. They have a serious job, and that is housing offenders who have been adjudicated guilty of their crimes. And there's real victims out there as well that they've done those crimes to. And so it is serious business where those people are going to be housed. And I think, or I hope, they're doing their level best. But when it comes to this location process of where they want to locate the prison, I appreciate the fact that Secretary Wasco, what I would say, struggled to answer my question today about why she didn't.
This is for reports.
Engage.
This is what's going on. What meetings did we go to? What happened? This isn't for position statements.
Well, I went to this meeting today and I'm making a report on it, Commissioner.
Go ahead.
So, thank you. So, the problem I have with Secretary, or the Department of Corrections here, is they didn't come to this commission first, and they didn't come to the public first. They made their decision first, and now they're having to back into this decision. And we got folks who are very concerned about their neighborhood being turned into a new prison site. So I echo their concerns. I side with them. And, but I am glad the Department of Corrections came in here and wanted to finally, 18 months later, engage with us. I do take issue with the fact that the record was closed. I think the record was closed in February after the hearing, and they could have started engaging with the public then. So, but it is good now, at least, that they've started to engage the public, even if it is 18 months later. So that's my commissioner report on the Department of Corrections presentation.
Thank you. Commissioner Otten, any report you'd like to make?
I do. Doug and I, next door to being here, we've been working on a new ordinance with landowners to finish up where we left off on December 24th. And I gave you a copy this morning that we're going to give to Toby. And I also gave a copy to Drew. And I'm just going to give one to Commissioner Aaron's. So we'll get it to Toby to vet with our attorney, which I already gave him a copy, and and hopefully we'll be on the first planning and zoning agenda on January 20th.
Thank you.
Can I ask Commissioner Otten, what does this contain?
We've got copies of it
I
right
didn't
here.
get one. No. Okay, thank you.
Any report that you would like to make, Commissioner Putnam?
Well, it has to do with the prison. Our forefathers were smart enough to see what happened in Nebraska, where they put the county seat in Lincoln, where it wasn't centrally located. So then they decided that they would centrally locate it in Pierre. Now, why would people today not do the same thing, putting a prison centrally located in South Dakota for everybody, as opposed to having it here in Sioux Falls, that was put here before this was South Dakota, it was still a territory. The prison, I feel, needs to be centrally located out in West River somewhere. And I wished I could have said that to people. They made it sound like it was set in stone. Our Representative Lems, I wish she could have spoke first. It wasn't set in stone, I found out. This needs to be in the center of the state. It don't need to be here in Lincoln County, where people in Lemon, South Dakota have to come down to see their people, or something like that. This is wrong, and I would have wished I could have made this statement before. But it's online now, and I hope to think so, and however, that's what I have to say right now.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Schmidt, any report you would like to make?
Yes, I met with our airport director and talking about what is happening out at our airport. We applied for a grant to construct a building, and it was not funded. So we're going to be talking to David and come back to you with some ideas and maybe some alternate plans for moving forward with our airport and making sure that it becomes an asset, a bigger asset than what it is right now. So anyway, that's my report.
Thank you.
Basically.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
What does Lincoln County have to do? What was the reason that they needed an airport?
Doug, this goes back years and years and years back to, I think, Commissioner Ski was the commissioner at the time. He was very involved in aviation, and he secured an FAA grant to put an airport in T, and they bought land. They had a facility that had a runway at that time, which was I don't know, it's short in today's standards, but at that time. And they had a crosswind runway, which could have been an lever airport for Sioux Falls. Subsequent commissioners didn't believe that an airport was necessary, Doug, very honestly. So they sold off the crosswind runway, so now you have one runway which is limited as to the planes it can accommodate. They sold a lot of hangars around there, and it has been, let's say, a challenge to reduce the cost to the Lincoln County taxpayers, because at one time it was considerable. It was like $2 for every person in the county that had to subsidize the airport. Well, now we have, over time, we have reduced that, so it's darn near revenue neutral. It still costs a little money, but not much, not very little. So the whole idea was, we've tried to sell that to T. We offered it to the municipality of T. They chose not to have it. We then moved ahead with the FAA to try to get it to be an instrument approach, and that is still somewhere in discussion. But right now, what we maintain this airport. We have several hangars on there, which we're reviewing the cost for renting purposes. But Commissioner, we have an airport. We do. Now, if you want to sell this thing, which, everybody says, why don't you sell it? Well, if you want to sell the airport, that's fine. But then you better be ready to pay back to the FAA all the money they've given you over time to maintain the airport, which would be in the millions of dollars. So it is what it is. So our job is to try to make this as attractive for our airport users to use. We have considerable hangars. We have hangars we can build, which can be of profit to the commission. So that's our challenge, and we'll give you subsequent reports on how we're doing on that.
I heard that it was, they set it up so it was, the hangars were a long-term rental.
Oh, yeah.
Which is that about to the end?
Well, many of them are now coming due, because, and they're right. I couldn't imagine who did this, but they put them out there for 10, 15, 20 years at no cost. I mean, we were charging something like a nickel a square foot or something. And I think that's now being all addressed, because many of these now are online, and the rent will be subsequently raised considerably. And I would imagine that you will have airport hangar owners, users, coming in front of this commission that are not going to be pleased with what their costs are going to be. That's kind of like saying they're going to be damn mad, but I mean, we'll leave it at that, so.
Thank you, Commissioner Schmidt. Did you have another report that you would like to
Excuse
make?
me. No, I'm done. I'm done. I'll give you a little history.
Are you sure? Okay. Real briefly, it's my understanding last night regarding the new courthouse that we've got some issues resolved. We are working with the city of Canton on the sanitary upgrades for the new courthouse. So they've agreed to pay the extra expense for some increased length of sanitary pipe and the diameter of it. So I was happy to hear that. And then also, it's my understanding that they did hire Andrew Petrus as the city administrator for Canton, so I look forward to working with him on this project going forward and cooperating with the city of Canton to make sure that it's a success. All right, with that, is there a need for executive session? All right. I'm going to ask that we go into executive session under SDCL. Do you want all three, Drew?
Subsection 1 and 3.
Just subsection 1 and 3 of the statute, correct? Okay. I'm going to ask for a motion that we go into executive session under SDCL 125-2 sub 1 and sub 3.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
All right, and I don't know, we're not asking for public input prior to that. I guess we hadn't been.
Yep.
As far as going into exec. Okay, very good. Will you call the roll, Alicia?
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Otten?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Putnam?
Yes.
Landine?
Yes. Out of executive session.
So moved?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Alicia, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Aaron's?
Yes.
Otten? Yes. Schmidt?
Yes.
Putnam?
As in what?
You're coming out of executive session.
Oh, okay, yeah, we're out.
Landine?
Yes. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.
Sounds good. Aye.